All right. So thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Lisa Partida with Home Again LA. I'm the resource case manager. Tonight we have Cameron McNeilis with Pacific Western Bank, and tonight's topic is going to be about building your financial future, what that looks like. Just preparing yourself now for the future. So I'll go ahead and pass it along to Cameron.
Thank you, Lisa. So as she mentioned, my name is Cameron. I am a branch manager. Originally, when we started with Home Again, I was working with Pacific Western Bank, but we have now been acquired. And so now we're Bank of California. That acquisition went into effect on December 1st. And we're still kind of going through the conversions and stuff, but we're still serving all of the community, services that we were doing before. And Bank of California is really big into doing community services and workshops like these. So they really, that's not going to change. So hopefully, I'll be able to continue doing these because I do enjoy them. And this building your financial future is actually, from what I've looked, it's actually really good. They really go into a lot of detail about how to, like, what is going to be beneficial for you to like build your finances and things that, really may or may not. So we'll go ahead and get into it. If you guys have any questions, you can type into the chat, or if you want to just unmute yourself and ask, that's fine too. And then I can go ahead and try to answer any questions that you have. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So next slide, got a little test here. Does anyone want to try to answer any of these questions, or you want me to just go through it? It's up to you. And we're going to go over all this stuff, so don't feel like if you don't know the answers that, don't feel like you're,
I
not
think we I think we could answer the questions.
okay.
Yeah.
So it says, true or false. Number one, being financially secure is only possible if you have a high income. Anyone wanna say what they think?
I
True
think
or false?
that's false.
It's definitely false. Yeah. Um, and we'll talk about ways that you can do that. Everyone thinks like, oh, they're rich, they can afford all these things and stuff. But how did they get rich? And I'll tell you, like, I've seen several people, and I could tell you from me just growing up, like when my father remarried, my stepmother was very frugal, and she was a penny pincher. She would clip coupons, and she would go to all the different stores that had sales. And I mean, and she wasn't, poor, but she did it because she wanted to save as much money as she could. It was kind of like, I don't know, like a game for her. And, I mean, now she's really well off. So if you start, if you get into these habits, you can build wealth. So number two, buying a car is always a bad financial choice because it means taking on debt. What do you guys think about that one? This one I kind of was like, well, could be either one, but um, one more so than the other. Anyone? No one?
I think that I want to say false again.
Yeah, it is false because even though you are taking on debt, owning a vehicle allows you to have more opportunities to be able to go out and have a side hustle, or be able to go out and do things, or start a business and get materials, or be crafty or whatever. It allows you to have that freedom to be able to pick people up, or go and meet somebody, or go and drive to a location for an interview, or all those different things. So it it can be a good financial thing. Now, you don't want to buy a super expensive car that you can't afford, like a lot of people have done recently, which that's all they talk about on the news is all these car repossessions. You don't want to do that. So yeah, that one's false. So the next one's earning a 4-year degree is a guaranteed way to increase your net worth. So what do you think about this one? This one's kind of tricky.
I'll take a pass on this one. I'm not sure.
You can pass. Okay. Um, The actual answer is false, only because it's stating that it's a guaranteed way. If it would say that it is a way to, it would be true because it is. Definitely education, learning skills, getting training, doing those things. They can make you more marketable. Definitely when you learn a lot of the different things, especially like what we're going to talk about in this course, you can. But let's say you get a degree in something and you take on a lot of student debt, and let's say you get a degree in something that's not, very lucrative as a career. It's not really a good thing because you're taking on a ton of debt. And let's say that you're only going to make, I mean, let's be really conservative. Let's say you're only going to make like $40,000 a year in a starting position in this whatever field that you got a degree in, but you have like $100,000+ of debt. It's going to be really difficult, especially in areas like in LA. So it just depends. It can be true and it can be false. So um, if you get something that's you're not taking on a ton of debt, and it's something that will definitely move you ahead, there's a guarantee that you'll get hired. That's another thing too, is that a lot of these, when you get a certification or a degree, there's no guarantee that you're going to get a job when you get out. So those are all things to think about. And I'm not saying don't get a degree. It's important. I think education is really important. But make sure that whatever you're deciding that you want to do, that it's something that can benefit you, and that you're not going to be owing money for the next 20 years to pay it off, if you have to take on a bunch of loans. And the last one, say you can find your net worth by A, adding the value of everything you own, B, subtracting the sum of your liabilities from the sum of your assets. We're going to discuss what those are. And C, adding up all of your equity. We're going to discuss what equity is too. Or D, both B and C. Does anyone want to take a stab at that? No?
I want to say D, both B and C.
It could be. It could be, but for net worth, for the sake of net worth, you could add up your equity, but what you also want to do is you want to add up, because equity would be an asset, so you will want to subtract your liabilities from your assets. So if your assets is 100,000 and your liabilities is 50,000, then your net worth is 50,000, because you have 50,000 that's tangible assets that you have subtracted from your liabilities. But let's say your assets were 100,000 and your liabilities were 125,000, then your net worth is negative 25,000, because you owe more money than you have in assets. Does that make sense? You kind of, we'll go into more, we'll talk about some more. We have a couple of really good little scenarios to go through, and they'll explain more about that as we go. Any questions so far before we move on? No? Okay. Well, thank you for that, Vanessa. That was a good guess. I mean, I kind of thought that it was too, but they'll talk about that because the equity is important. So assets and asset building. So we're going to discuss what an asset is and how you can, make your assets increase in value. I'm going to go to the next slide, please. Assets can lead to wealth and financial security. So like I discussed a second ago, if you have more assets than you have liabilities, then if you needed to, like let's say you own a home and you owe, say 200,000, but you do, you go into like the real estate and you get, you have them, give you a value on your home. And let's say they say your home is worth 400,000, then you have equity. So an equity can be used, like if you decide to sell that home, the amount that you owe would be paid off by the amount that you sell the home for, and then whatever's left over you would have in your pocket. So you could have that asset basically be money that you could work with. So if you had something happen, or you were tight on money, you could borrow against that house, the equity in your house, or You know, there's a lot of things you can do, but if you owe a lot of money and you're renting or something, you don't have any equity if you rent. So, and I just read something, it's funny, right before this class, I was reading something that said if you rent, it's basically like paying 100% interest because all the money you're putting in is not going into any kind of equity for you. You're not building any equity. So it's like you're basically paying everything on interest if you're renting because all that money is going to your landlord and not to you.
Okay, really quick. So I've
Mhm.
always been confused about equity. So equity is basically the extra money on the value of your home
Or
minus or
vehicle,
subtracted by the amount of debt that you owe.
correct. So even a car,
Okay.
you could even have equity on a car. Like I can give you an example. I have an SUV. I bought it in 2018. I have
Mhm.
about 5 more payments on it. So I think I owe probably like $2,800, $3,000 on it right now, but it's worth a lot more than that. So I have equity in my vehicle because it's worth more than I owe.
Okay.
And if I were to sell it, the money that I owe would get paid off first, and then whatever was left over would be my equity. That money would
Okay.
be mine that I could use to purchase another car or use to invest in something else if I wanted to. Does
Okay,
that
great. Thank
kind
you.
of does that bring a little more clarity toward your question?
Absolutely. I was confused on equity for years, so
Oh yeah,
finally
yeah.
know what it means. Thank you.
No, no problem. You know, and that's why they say, you know, when you they always say it's better to like be what does it say to be in the market than to time the market because a lot of people that try to time the market, you know, they wait and they wait and they wait and they're like, I want to let it get all the way down as low as it can before I get in. And then it's like they get in and it goes lower and then they lose money. And then they're like, oh, you know, like they get upset. Or they say,
Mhm.
I'm going to ride this wave all the way and the market keeps going up and they hold and they hold and they hold and then it starts to drop and then they lose money because they didn't get out, you know, when they had, because it feels good, you know, it feels good to make money in the stock market or, you know, to be watching your assets, you know, increase in value. But it's like, you know, it's better to be in there than to try and wait or time it because, you know, things swing all the time, especially, I don't know if you guys watch, but the market's been going up and up and up, and then it'll go down and then it'll go up and it'll go down and it'll go up. It's like, I can't figure it out. It's,
Yeah.
it's been, this year's been crazy. So hopefully next year will be good. I mean, I don't want to jinx anything, but yeah, I'm hoping, you know, that because I have retirement, you know, I have a 401k and I don't want to see it, you know, start, you know, shrinking. I need that money.
Right.
That's I don't have any pensions or anything. So Social Security and my 401k, that's it. That's all I have to retire. So, you know, and assets, of course. But, you know, I mean, as far as like income, that's it. Okay, let's go to the next one, please. Okay, so an asset, like I said, it's basically anything that you own that has a value. So there's 3 types. There's physical, which is, you know, like a property or a vehicle or um, any kind of like let's say you collect coins or stamps or anything like that. They have a value if it's something, if it's worth something to a collector and it's actually like an item that's like a physical thing. So a financial, that's obviously like accounts that you have, like cash on hand, like you have a savings account, you have an IRA, you have a 401k, um, you have just a checking account. So all of those would be financial assets because that's money that you have that you can use. And productive is a little bit more kind of a gray area, but like we talked about earlier, like the productive could be, like I said, like you could use your vehicle to get you around to do side hustles. You can use a computer to like research things and, you know, send and receive information. Same thing with the cell phone. So those could be productive assets because you can use them to produce for you. And the value is determined based on the type of the asset. So it depends on, you know, what type of asset. Because I mean, if it's productive and it's you say like it gets you to a job that you can go to an interview and you get that job, you can't really put a value on going to that interview, but you can definitely say that it helped you get to a better position. So that would be like a productive asset. And we'll talk more about it. So, I mean, this is just the first slide. We'll actually get more into it as we go. So the next slide, I think we have something coming up here. Yes, we do. Okay, so this is exactly what I was talking about. So, is it an asset? And I have the answers here. So if you want, I can just go down the answers, or if you guys want to jump in and take a stab at one of them, it's up to you. I don't want to like pressure you guys to do anything if you don't want to. So we already talked about a computer. So yes, it is an asset because you can use it to help you grow wealth, assets, and it's a good tool. So what do you think about a credit card? Because this one's tricky. You want to guess?
I think it depends.
You're right.
It's-
It does depend.
I think it's a great way to build your credit,
Mm-hmm.
but you just have to use it very responsibly.
Exactly. And that's exactly what the answer is having available credit can be an asset because you can use it. But like you said, you have to pay it back. So you can't just say, I have a $5,000 credit card, so I'm just going to use that 5,000. And then the next month when you get your bill, you'll be like, oh no, I have to pay it back. Like, yeah, you have to pay it back. It's not free. And they charge interest. So yeah, be careful. So the next one, it says a nursing degree. What do you think about that one?
I think that's an asset.
That one it depends, okay?
Okay.
So it's a productive asset if it helps you earn more money. It will depend on several factors, such as the reputation of the school, granting the degree, and the type of degree you earn and your grades. So, you can get a nursing degree, but, like if you don't go to like a really accredited school, or if you don't get really good grades, or there's no guarantee that you're going to get hired either. Like just because you get a nursing degree doesn't mean that there's going to be a hospital down the street that's going to say, oh boy, you got a nursing degree, you're automatically hired. They may not need anybody. So that one's it depends. And like I said, I mean, I'm all for, getting education, trying to constantly grow and learn. I'm a real big proponent of that. The next one, inventory in a business. This one is a yes, because if you have inventory and you have a business and you can sell the inventory and that makes you money. Your credit history and scores. This is also, it depends. They're productive assets if they help you get other assets. So if your scores aren't that good, you still might not be able, you'll have a credit card for now, but if you try to get another credit card, you might get turned down. So if it's something that is good that you can use, if you have a good credit score and you manage your credit well, then if you wanted to get another loan, you more than likely would get it. And lunch at a restaurant, that is not an asset. And go to the next slide. I don't know if there's more or not. No, we'll skip that. Okay, benefits of asset building, financial security, income, and assets. So that's a two, all of us work, I'm assuming. I mean, I'm gonna have to work probably a long time. And hopefully, if you're smart with your money that you make from your income, that you use it to build assets. Like I said, assets are things that have real value that if you needed to, you could sell, or you could keep investing in them and growing them. So I mean, it's something that is available to you to use if you need extra money, or if heaven forbid something happens in your life and you're in kind of a pinch and you have something you could sell at a garage sale or something that's worth something. I mean, that's an asset, and you'll make some money from it. So it's the foundation for your financial future. Obviously, I mean, we're on this planet, for however long the powers that be allow us to be. So hopefully you can make things work for you so that as you age in life, that you'll have more security, so that you can be able to have the long-term financial stability and wealth. That's the end goal. That's what you want. So it says it's essential to achieving that. Next slide, please. Owning assets creates a buffer to handle emergencies. Like I just said, it helps you reach your goals. It increases your options. It helps you earn more income. Like I said, if you wanted to make a business at, say, you see all these shows where these people go to storage lockers and they buy them and they turn around and they find all these treasures in them and they sell them and make money. I mean, I wouldn't do it, but somebody does. It inspires you to look to the future and it reduces stress. I mean, you're going to feel a lot more calm if you know that your situation with your finances and everything is stable, and are not stressing to pay your bills, that you have those buffers, and you think in the back of my mind, I have the safety net. If something were to happen, I have this money saved, or I have these things I could sell, or I have equity in a home that I could use if I had to. And it makes you, obviously feel a little bit more relaxed about things. So go to the next slide. We'll skip this one. Assets can lead to wealth and financial security, obviously. Next slide, please. So how they can create a financial foundation. So now let's see where we're at here. So let's see page. And I know there's another. Try this next slide. So section 2, which is what we're in now, this is the key takeaway. Network is a good measure of your financial stability. Calculate your net worth, which is one of the questions we talked about earlier, by subtracting your liabilities. And the liability is usually money that you owe others, whether it be in a loan, a credit card, or you borrow money from your friend or whatever, and then from your assets. So whatever assets you have, which could be your car, could be a home, it could be, furniture or collectibles or whatever it may be, you subtract your liabilities from your assets. Next slide. And we have an example of that. So an asset is something that you own that has value, like we discussed. Liability is something that you owe. And the equity is the value of an asset minus the liability. So like we said, like with the home loan, if your home is worth more than the amount that you owe on it, that's the equity. So if you had, like I said, a home loan, and you owed 200,000, but the home was worth 400,000, then you have 200,000 in equity. So that's what it says. The equity is the value of the asset, which is 400,000, minus the liability, which is 200,000, which equals 200,000 that you would have in equity. Does that make sense? Everyone following? Okay, next. And okay, this one's interesting. So Ezra, car purchase. He needs a car to get work done and to go to school. He finds a used car at the dealership that's worth $5,000. He's been saving $25 a week for the past 6 months. He now has $600 to use as a down payment. So what is the car's value? Well, the car's value is $5,000. He's going to have to borrow the difference, which is $4,400. So the amount that he would have as far as equity in that vehicle is the money that he puts down, which is $600. Does that make sense? So the car's worth $5,000. He put $600 down. So the car's still worth $5,000, but he's put $600 down payment on it. So he owes the difference. So he does still have a loan, but the vehicle's still worth $5,000. So he's that $600 that he put as a down payment, he still has that money is still basically equity. So it's not like he just threw it away. Whereas if you lease a car and you put a down payment on a leased vehicle, guess what? that doesn't give you any equity, because when you get done with that lease, they take the car and you have no equity in it at all. there's no equity for you. It's basically like renting a vehicle. It's the same thing. So that, just me personally, I always buy my vehicles. I try to keep them for a long time. I do maintenance. All the last 3 vehicles I've owned for more than 10 years. I've paid them all off, and I've been able to sell them and still make between, like, probably around 4,000, because I take really good care of my vehicles. So whenever I sell them, they sell really fast. And yeah, then I get into something else. When they start getting problematic, I start thinking I'm going to have too many problems. This is time to get a new car. Next slide. So your net worth. So this is the measure of all your financial wealth. It equals your assets minus your liabilities. And it also equals the equity from all of your assets added together. So your net worth is your assets minus your liabilities. So take all your assets that you have, like let's say you have a house, you have a car that you don't owe as much on, you have a collection of something, or you have some furniture, whatever that you have that's worth something. And then you say your liabilities, like say you don't have any credit cards, you just have a couple loans. So if all your assets equal more than the liabilities, then you have a positive net worth. Now, if your liabilities, if you owe a lot of money and you don't have that many assets, like let's say you buy a really expensive car and you have a loan for like 40,000, and the car's only worth, once you drive it off the lot, if it's brand new, it's probably gonna be worth less than 40,000. But let's say that your liabilities are really high and your assets are only half that. So if you have 40,000 in liabilities and 20,000 in assets, then your net worth is negative 20,000, because you owe more than you have that you can actually spend. You're negative. You don't. I know a lot of people, when they do that, when they buy a home, when they first buy it, they put their 20% down, or not. Some loans let you put 5% down. And if the market starts to change or starts to get volatile, you might be upside down. And then guess what? Your liabilities are more than your assets, because you'll owe more on the home than it's worth. And that's what happened in 2008. That's where a lot of people got into trouble, because they bought these homes that were really, really high. And then all of a sudden the economy started to, take a turn downwards. And then the values of those homes dropped. And let's say you owe 400,000 on a home that you originally bought that was worth like 500,000. And now, after, the market has gone way, way, way down, now the house is only worth 300,000 and you owe 400. So you can't sell it, because you're going to take a loss. So you're kind of stuck. You just got to wait. Like I said, it's cyclical. It always comes and goes up, it goes down. So if you can weather the storm, I mean, that's what most people did. Or you could try to get like a forbearance or something like that, if that is allowed, which is what some people did too. So next slide. And like we said, there's a positive net worth. It gives you a financial cushion. A zero or negative net worth, no financial cushion. So like I said, I mean, and you may be zero. You may have, your assets might equal your liabilities, and then your net worth is zero, because there's no plus nor minus. So it's just zero, straight up. The teeter-totter is balanced. So you calculate your net worth, list all your assets, calculate their asset totals, list your liabilities and calculate liability totals, and then calculate the total assets minus the liabilities. If you go to the next slide, we have a little chart here, which I'll go through real quick. Okay, so here we go. Justine calculates her net worth. She bought her home 7 years ago. The current value of her home is $130,000, and she owes $100,000 on her mortgage. So right there, she has equity. She has $1,500 in a checking account and $500 in a savings account. So she's got $2,000 in cash in her accounts. So that's an asset, because it's currency. She owns that. She can spend it. Okay, so the next part says she has a truck that she bought a few years ago. She could sell it for 2,000, but she still owes 3,000 on the loan for the truck. So guess what? That one, she owes more than it's worth. So she's going to get dinged on that one by $1,000. And then she has one credit card with the balance of 1,000. She's going to get dinged on that because she owes that. So she's already getting dinged for $2,000. And she has a student loan with the balance of $15,000. So she's getting dinged $17,000. So her total assets up to this point is 32,000. And then on the very last portion here, she has a lot of furniture and heirlooms handed down from her grandmother, including some genuine antiques. The value was recently estimated at 7,000. So that's an asset also. So her assets, based on what I get here, is 39,000. And then her liabilities is 17,000. So that gives you, wait, what is, oh, this is a different one. Oh, because I added, because I didn't take the value of the trucks. But yeah, it ends up being, go to the next slide. The difference, her net worth is 22,000. So she has 22,000 as a net worth. Her assets are worth more than her liabilities. And the reason why it went up to 39, and I had, they put the total value of the house, which was 130, and then added everything on, and then they took out the 100. So they actually, instead of me like doing the math in my head, they actually added everything up and then did the subtraction at the end. So it's 22,000. So does that make sense? Sort of, kind of. So basically, yeah, if you take everything that has value minus everything that you owe, that'll tell you if you have a net worth that's positive or negative. You want to have a positive if you can. I know it's hard now. Everything's so expensive, and I know that it's not going down and our wages aren't going up. So it's getting, I mean, I've noticed, I see it. So, you know, I know that things are, food and utilities and all that, you know, vehicles, everything's expensive. It's very expensive. So got to try and keep ahead, try to stay ahead of it, one step ahead. So next slide. So this is how you calculate your net worth, what we just talked about. So it's saying if your statements of financial institutions will show your account balances, your checking accounts, your savings accounts, your investments accounts statements will show the balances in your college savings plan. ABLE, we're not really going to talk about. Employer-sponsored 401k retirement, IRAs, any kind of investments that you have. If you have stocks, that would fall in there too. Your car title or car registration will show the make, model, and year of your car. Use that information. You could look up the trade-in or the resale value. I look on Kelley Blue Book just for fun every once in a while, like maybe every 6 or 8 months, just to see what's going on. And then public records on a recent appraisal can help you estimate the value of your house. Like I said, you can go online, you can look at Zillow, and they give you like a range. They'll say a high and a low range, and they just put it right in the middle. They say, you know, the house is worth this much. Next slide. So changing your net worth, how do you do it? So one way is you can increase your assets. Another way is you could decrease your liabilities, or you can do both. And what are some specific ways that you can increase your net worth? We'll talk about that in the next slide. So this is where it's hard. This is where you have to make the sacrifice. So spend less than you make. Buy less than you can afford. Save money. Use all the programs that are available to you. Use debt responsibly. Pay down your debts. Explore public benefits. Claim your tax credits. Shop around and build more assets. Next slide. Let's go to the next one. I think we get into some more. Net worth is a good measure of your financial stability. We've already talked about that. Next. That's the key. Okay, cars as assets. Okay, next slide. Now we're getting into something here. So a car can be productive, it can be protective too, productive asset when it helps you get other assets. Plan ahead to get a car you can afford, which has as little debt as possible. Next slide. Cars can be productive, safe, and reliable transportation is part of financial security, may increase the choice of jobs or access to medical services, education, childcare, or elder care. It says, does owning a car always make you better off financially? It could, might not. Next slide. Next one. I think we bounce back. And this, like we said, should you buy or lease a car? This one, obviously, the benefits of leasing a car is the monthly payments are less. If you want to have a new car every 3 years, you want to put a down payment down. Depending on, if you're planning on keeping that vehicle, sometimes leasing a car is cheaper in the short run, but definitely not in the long run. So, because once you own that car, you don't have any more payments. If you maintain that vehicle, you buy a well-made vehicle, it can run for a long time. I've seen people that have cars that are almost 20 years old and they still drive them and they love them. And, all they have to pay for is a little bit of maintenance and gas pretty much, or, well, not electricity because electric cars haven't been around that long, but next slide. How much car can you afford? Now, this is important. There's no precise formula. Guidelines and questions can help. Start with your spending and savings plan and remember to include costs for. Now, this is where a lot of people get, they're like, oh, the car, I can afford a $600 a month car payment. But what you don't account for is when you buy a new vehicle, your insurance is going to be higher, especially if it's a more expensive vehicle. Your maintenance and repairs, they may be expensive too. Gas, gas a couple years ago was pretty high. And then you have a registration fee every year that you have to pay. So every time you get to that anniversary of when the car was sold, you got to pay registration. And in California, registration's still kind of high. I mean, I think I still pay close to $300 a year on mine, and it's 5 years old. So when I first bought it, it was like almost $600 a year. So it has gone down, but it's still pretty expensive. And that's due in May. So every May, I know I have that extra expense. I have to pay that extra $300. So I budget for that. Next slide. Tips for getting a car loan. Obviously, you want to, get your credit reports, keep an eye on it. You can get pre-approved, shop around, keep good records. It's a good idea to get your credit report because sometimes there's been a lot of scams where people get your social security number and they start opening lines of credit in your name and you don't even know about it, and you go to buy that car and the people in the finance say, oh, we're looking at all these accounts that you have, and you're like, what accounts? I only have these 2 accounts. And they're like, no, you have another auto loan and you have all these credit cards and all this stuff. So it's a good idea to check it once a year. It's free too, so I recommend that. Next slide. So a car can be a productive asset when it helps you get other assets. Plan ahead to get a car you can afford with as little debt as possible. So do you need a Tesla? Do you need a luxury Mercedes or a BMW or an Audi? No. They're nice. Don't get me wrong. They're nice. I have friends that have them and they're super nice.
And they're
But,
also giving away they're also giving away
Yeah, and
rebates for Tesla.
they're super expensive, they're like 70,000 plus cars. So, you think about, how much money you're going to spend on that. Now, if you opted for something a little less expensive and saved some money, that would build better assets for you. And cars are depreciating too. They lose value. So that's another thing to consider too. I think they talk about that. Next slide. Okay, so training and education is an asset. Next slide. Touch on this real quick before we have to wrap it up. So training and education can be productive assets when they give you a strong chance of securing a better career or a higher paying job. Plan ahead to pay for them with as little debt as possible. Kind of like we talked about before. If you want to get, a good education, that doesn't mean that you have to go to a really expensive school like Harvard or, Princeton or Berkeley or any of those other ones. I mean, when I was in school, I actually took the route of going to, a junior college, and, it's just general ed. I mean, you don't need to go to a 4-year school to take general ed. You can get general ed anywhere, and then you just transfer. And then you go, for your higher level courses that you would obviously have to go to, an accredited university. But you could save a lot of money because a junior college is probably going to cost you less than a third of what a university is going to cost you for those first 2 years. So, next slide, please. So it can lead to higher wages. It can be an important part of asset building strategy, smart investment towards meeting goals, and many paths to higher pay and great careers. Obviously, there's a lot of careers that you have to have a degree. And I know back in the day that wasn't so much the case, but nowadays, and it's unfortunate too, because some of these really higher paying jobs, even if you have a degree, they want experience too. So it's really, it's hard. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, you can have been a career student, but you've never worked anywhere and get a degree and try to get a job, and they ask you, have you worked anywhere before? And you're like, no, I was going to school. I was focusing on my education. They may not, they may not want you because you have no work experience, and experience factors into it too. So you kind of want to try to do both if you can. I know that's really difficult. I worked and went to school. And I'll tell you, it's difficult. Next slide. Experience, educational experience. So there's on-the-job training. There's apprenticeships, like if you wanted to become an electrician or, a mechanic or anything like that, a home builder, vocational or career technical schools. If you wanted to be work in IT or something like that, there's technical schools that can do that. Community colleges, I already talked about, 4-year colleges. Military. My stepsister joined the military and she went into satellite communication, and she got out and she got a job at Boeing. She makes a lot of money, and she went to Boeing, decided that they wanted to make sure everyone had a degree. So she just went to University of Phoenix online, got her degree, and she got all her training in the military, and she makes big bucks. So the military can be really good. And Job Corps, AmeriCorps, and Peace Corps. Next slide. So pursuing education and training, you may need to invest your own resources such as time and money, obviously. It's not easy and it's not free. You may need student loans. Like I said, it's not free. And the opportunity cost. The time spent in school may be time not spent earning money. Sometimes school is too demanding. You can't work full time. It's going to be too difficult for you to succeed in school and work 40 hours a week. So there's got to be a balance. Next slide. Training or education is not always a smart investment. It depends on the school, the training, the program, the record of the job placement, the cost, obviously, related items. And this doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue training or education. Make informed choices. So like I said, shop around, see, ask. Sometimes if you go to a counselor or something and you say, this is what I'm thinking of, sometimes they know and they can tell you. Like, we've had a lot of students that went through this program and 95% of them got hired. And then sometimes they'll tell you, we've had a lot of students go through this program and they're still looking for jobs. So it just depends. And a lot of it depends on market factors too. They may need jobs right now, but in 10 years from now, they may not. I mean, you never know. Next slide. We'll skip that. Okay, ways to pay. This is where I My dad raised me, and he told me basically there was no rules for me as far as like you have to be home at this time. I had a car, I was in school, and I worked. And he said, you can do what you please, you can come and go like you please, you always have a place to stay, whatever, but don't ask me for money. So I always was very leery of that. So yeah, it says ask help from friends and family. My mom, I could ask. My dad, I couldn't. Save money now, or use saved money. It's always good to have a little money saved just for emergencies, or that emergency credit card. I'm really big on that. Have at least one credit card, even if you don't use it in case of emergencies. Work while attending school. I did that. Apply for scholarships and grants. Ask for help from your employer. Sometimes employers give you incentives. If you go to school and you get like a B average or above, sometimes they'll pay for a portion. Some of them will pay for most of your tuition. So you should need to look into that. If you have an employer that does that, definitely want to take advantage of that. And then borrow money using student loans because the interest is less and the payback time is longer. So you would have less money that you have to start paying back immediately when you finish school, or a combination of the above. Next slide. So scholarships and grants. Scholarships are merit-based, awarded to students with certain qualities. So yeah, like athletes, it's very competitive. So you see these schools and they talk about, that they recruit the athletes from the high schools that, had the best, football program or basketball program or whatever it might be. Grants are need-based, usually awarded based on financial situation. Also, they're always competitive. Everyone wants it. It's a handout. So you're up against everyone else. So they're going to go for whichever one they see that has like the most boxes checked off. So next, we're almost done. Saving money for training or education. This one, these help you save money for education costs, but these are programs, and like I said, like I don't really deal with these too much. But if you wanted to save for an education, these are benefits that you could use. So like the ABLE one is individuals with significant disabilities that began before their 26th birthday, and you can use those funds for education. So obviously that's like giving you a benefit. It's probably like tax-free or something like that, but we don't really get into that. Next slide. Third, 40. Yeah, we've got a couple of pages. So there's two kinds, federal and private. You don't have to borrow the maximum amount that's offered you. Like I said, only take what you need because you got to pay it back. Only borrow what you need. And as soon as you start working, you want to make sure that your starting salary is enough that you can start paying on that debt, because they're going to want you to start paying it back. Next slide. So the federal student loans offered by federal government, they have lower interest rates and offer better repayment terms, benefits, and options than private student loans. Generally, repayment starts after a student leaves school. So, while you're in school, you don't have to worry about paying it back. But as soon as you graduate, you got to get a job and start working on paying it back. Next slide. The FAFSA, this is a really good program, and we actually offered some courses in this. This is a good way for you to apply for all of these programs. So they give you student aid. If you want to go to that link, the FAFSA.gov, it's a lot of stuff. We've done, I did one training on it a couple years ago, and it's a really good program if you're interested. Because they do actually give out a lot of grants and stuff like that for students. Next slide. So paying back, it's important to pay them back on time. You don't want to ruin your credit because you don't pay back your student loan. Federal student loans are not automatically discharged by bankruptcy. So you're saying like, I can't afford it. They may say, well, just pay it back when you get another job, or, it's going to hang over you. So non-payment can result in a referral to debt consolidation or collection agency, a drop in credit scores, wages, or they can withhold your wages, garnish your wages. That's not good. And before getting a student loan, understand its terms and your options for repayment. Like I said, gotta pay it back. Next slide. And contact your loan servicer. You may be able to restructure your payments. Some people have done that after you've paid for a certain amount of time. Sometimes you can do like what you do with a home. You can like refinance it and spread it out over a longer period of time so that you're paying less, which is a good tool. And that helps a lot of people, if you fall on hard times, so that you can stay on top of it, and not have to basically take a bankruptcy or hurt your credit. Next slide. And the key takeaway is training and education can be productive assets when they give you a strong chance of securing a better career or a higher paying job. Plan ahead to pay for them with as little debt as possible. That's the key thing. If you can get away with borrowing less, it's better for you in the long run because there's interest on that. You're going to end up paying a lot more. I think that's it. Next slide. I think that's the end. And take action. What will I do? How will I do it? How will I share my plans with anyone? If so, they say visit fdic.gov education to learn more. So like I said, there's a bunch of programs out there. This training doesn't really talk about them, but there's a bunch of things available. And I think then we go back to the test again, which we already did. So I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions? We're right on time. It's perfect.
Good. Thank you so much, Cameron.
Like I said, this is a really, really good training. So it's definitely important. And I think that the sooner that you start, like the better opportunities that you'll have, because like when you're dealing with interest and stuff like that, it's time-based. So if you're earning interest on money that you have, the longer that you leave it sitting in there earning interest, it compounds and compounds and compounds. And one of my other co-workers does a really good thing where he talks about a 401k and he gives you different scenarios. Like if you borrow 20,000 when you're like 30 years old, like how much it'll affect you when you retire. And you think, oh, they borrowed 20,000, like it won't be that much. No, it's a lot. It's like $100,000 or $200,000 after like 20 years later when your retirement age. It's a big hit. So yeah.
That's scary.
I know. No, and I read these stories and they're saying, that people they're having to tap into a lot of their savings, and
Yeah, it's just the
good.
times we're living in. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. You gotta get your side hustle going,
Absolutely. Wonder what that's
start a
gonna
business.
be. Maybe selling some cupcakes or something,
That's right. Lemonade
Yeah.
stands, whatever you gotta do.
Mm-hmm. Whatever
Washing
works.
cars.
Washing cars is a good one, actually.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Cameron. We really do appreciate your time, and thank you so much, Vanessa and Arlene, for joining us tonight.
Yes.
We'll see
Yeah,
you
thank
guys.
you.
All right.
Thank you for your participation. I hope that this, gives you some insight and helps you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
You're
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Okay. Have a good night.
You
Bye-bye.
too.